right. Sound check. Sound check. See Farsight in the house. Ready to go. As always. All right. Yes, Eamon, Sean Stryker, welcome. See Farsight, I have your shirt. It is in my trunk. It will get posted tomorrow and should be with you within the week. So thank you. You have the drink. You have the shirt is on the way. Eamon, yes. So Tabletop Titans is streaming one of their tournament games tonight, the one with Custodes against Harlequins. So I don't blame anybody if you want to go over and watch that. Of course, you can watch it later. You can also watch this later. I'll say that you probably learn more from watching this, but you can watch both. So I don't mind if people go watch that. I can't change my schedule. The streaming is very busy these days. So if you want to go watch that, then go for it. I don't blame you. And when I'm done here, I'll probably flip over into there as well to heckle the crowd. So yes, for sure. All right, welcome guys to Can-Hammer TV, your source for 40K and Custodes from the Great White North. Tonight is Custodes Tactica episode 33, and we are going to be talking about 5 games I played in the last few days with my new 9.4.6 and a 9.4.7 lists, which the 9.4 series involve Sisters of Silence. So, if you're not sure what this numbering and everything means, what it is on the Discord, on the Custodes channel of the Discord, I usually post a list or two that I'm working on, and you can follow the lists through as they evolve, and we talk about it on the shows about where these lists come from and how I evolve them and why. And so if you're interested in that kind of thought process, you can follow along the development of these lists over time. And I number them. So, 9 for 9th edition, version 4, which is the version that includes Sister of Silence, and then, 6th version of the list, 7th of the version of the list, blah, blah, blah. So that's just the numbering that I came up with. It's not a very, it is what it is. So you can follow along. Some people like that. Some people don't. Whatever. It doesn't matter. It's there for you. It's pinned in the channel. So we are going to talk tonight about the 3 games I played at the RTT on Saturday, which we kind of talked a little bit about last night on the podcast, but it was more of a general wrap-up with Francois and Nick and Chris. But tonight we're going to deep dive into the 3 games just from Custodes' point of view. And then we're also, bonus, going to throw in the 2 games that I played today. One was not on stream this morning, and the second one is on stream, so you can watch that as well in the afternoon. Me against Chris, 2 games between Sisters of Battle and Custodes. So it's 5 games in total we're going to go through, so there's going to be lots of learnings tonight, trying some new things, really getting sunk into the tactics of playing competitive Custodes, pure faction Custodes. So this is probably the biggest experience dump we've had so far in 9th, because a real concentration of games using this list. So for those wondering, I'm drinking a beer called Okela, which is a kind of ginger coriander ale, which is brewed by Whippersnapper, who is a local Ottawa brewery owned by our former residency program director administrator, whose family opened up a brewery and they make amazing beer. So that's what I'm drinking. Okay. I don't normally like kind of fruity or kind of taste beers like ginger beer, stuff like that. But this particular beer is really nice for the summertime. For whatever reason, it's the only time I drink it. So it's pretty nice. Okay. So as you probably heard, we had an RTT on Saturday, just as a small invitational kind of, just 8 of us. A lot of us have already been playing together, super spaced out, all masks. The store itself was closed, so it was very COVID secure, and it was 8 people. And it was going to be highly competitive, as there was 8 highly competitive people. And so I would been working on a list to try it out under this circumstances, and I'm fairly happy with it. So the what I noticed recently is I'm struggling with two things with playing Custodes in 9th. Number one, resetting the aggression setting. So in 8th edition, towards the end before our book came out, you really could not be aggressive. It was hide hammer, turn 3, come out, try and wrap, stay alive, try and win small. And then with our new book, we have the potential to be quite aggressive. So that is definitely a way to play, and in probably over half your games, you might actually do fine. And so my first game against Chris yesterday was a perfect example of where I was too aggressive and I almost still pulled it out. But probably the happy medium lies somewhere in between, where we can be much more aggressive than we were before our book drop and before 9th, but we still can't be full on bang in your face if you want to win a lot of games. So that, and just finding that level of aggression per game, depending on your opponent and the mission and the terrain, is where the real truth lies in playing each game. And so just working reps is the only way you're going to learn that. So we were playing straight up, missions from here. Dan was rolling them at the beginning of each round, and we would all play the same missions. We didn't know which missions they were. And and so we got on it. So I got paired against Chris in the first round. Our table looked like this. So this was the mission Surround and Destroy, where there are the 6 objectives, the 2 really quite far, almost into the corners, and then 2 quite central across the no man's land. And we had both picked secondaries kind of poorly. We both picked Recon, and I picked Assassinate because he had sort of 4 characters, 3 and the big shrine character, which is surprisingly hard to kill. And then, which was a bad pick in the end. And we both picked the mission objective, which was to hold both yours and hold one or two of your opponent's objectives. So that didn't work out for either of us. So we both scored 0 on that secondary. But basically, so this game was interesting. So Chris's list is really interesting. He's got a bunch of T3 girls, but girls who ignore AP. If they're close to the characters, have 4-up invuln, and so they can be fairly hard to kill. Now, the way Chris has been playing it was fairly spread out, and you infiltrate 2 or 3 units of Repentia. It's kind of 3 units of Repentia in total, and then also deep strike multiple Seraphim, 5-man Seraphim units, and playing very MSU. You have to screen them out well, and Repentia, even in small numbers, do hurt a lot. So, and then on top of that, it has like 14 Melta shots. Excuse me. His 14 Melta shots split out between 8 multi-Meltas and a bunch of Melta guns in the Celestian squads. So certainly a lot of firepower that is able to take me out, almost relying just on 4-ups to spare myself Melta damage. So the list I brought on Saturday was my 9.4.6, which is basically Trajan, so Shadowkeepers, Vanguard, running Trajan, Shield Captain on bike with the Oracle Quillis, also running the 5-up Funeral Pain Warlord trait, and running the Commander trait, Unstoppable Destroyer. So with this, and then there's the Vaxilla with Turbo Shiv and Shield, then there's some 5 Alaris, 5 Aquilon, and 5 Salvo bikes, and 2 units of basic girls with 2 Null Maiden Rhinos. And so that's the whole list. It starts with 8 CP, which I thought might be a concern, but in my couple of test games before Saturday, my one test game, it seemed to go okay. So I decided to stick with Unstoppable Destroyer because it's always been so good. So and then just using Trajan and being okay with that CP. And so that was the list going into Saturday. So my plan for this was initially to bump up. I got first turn, bump up, get on these 2 objectives so I hold 4, and then kind of slowly push into his zone. Now, it turns out I did not screen very well at the back with my girls. I pushed the girls up and left the rhinos at the back. which was the opposite of probably what I should have done. Leave the girls at the back and bump the rhinos up to get recon. Make them shoot meltas at the rhinos, and that's more meltas not coming at me. And then really play 3 objectives hard, and then contest the 4th, and then you win that way. You guarantee yourself your 10 primary, and odd turn you might get 15, and do your secondaries. So that's kind of the better game plan. I pushed a little bit too aggressive. At one point, I pushed a shield captain right into his zone, and while that gamble paid off, that shield captain survived 14 melta shots and ended up taking out a lot of things. It just was not, it probably wasn't the right play, even though it paid off in spades, and he did die in the end. Also at that time, I had taken While We Stand, I think, and I ended up losing 2 of my characters. So that was not a good secondary pick, and I actually have since stopped taking While We Stand, because I think it's a little bit of a trap based on how I play my characters. I think the Suicide Captain is generally not the best way to use the Shield Captain on bike. I think you save him to harass or to bolster a wing, which is exactly what I ended up doing today, to much greater effect to use the captain that way. In the shadows, how do you measure if you're too aggressive? I wish I knew. You just have to, it's just, it comes with experience, I think. You just got to play reps, man. You just got to play reps. You have a game plan in your head, and then you know how aggressive you need to be to achieve that game plan, I think. So when we'll talk about the second game, you'll see the difference. So Rede's asking, is a big sister flyer thing have 40k rules? Would you play a majority sisters list? I'm not sure what the big sister flyer thing is, and no, I would not play a majority sisters list. In the end, I ended up, because I lost the 10 points on While We Stand, and it was a very close game. I ended up losing by 5 or 6 points, because I ended up giving Chris my back objectives, but then I ended up taking his back objectives, and so we kind of just swapped around. And I did not need to be so aggressive if I just played for 3 objectives and contested a 4th, just like I did today. I would have gone much better. So that was definitely one where I was slightly too aggressive and just lost too much of my army. Did not screen well, kind of basic 40k principles. Did not screen well, and then ended up just falling behind and not scoring well. So that was the first game. In this game, unimpressive things, salvo bikes. While they took a beating and ended up killing a few things in combat, the salvos themselves were pretty lackluster, and the Shield Captain with a single salvo shot also very lackluster in this game. What was performing, Terminators performed very well, and as expected, and the Sisters and Rhinos didn't really get their fair share in this game, because the Rhinos were picked off with Meltas because they had pushed forward there, and the girls threw themselves too far forward and ended up not doing well. Now, one unit of girls stuck on a middle objective for quite a number of turns, so they did do something for me, and I really do appreciate having these units that nobody wants to spend time shooting at, just getting me objectives and screening. So these are 2 things that actually proving difficult with our army, because we have few units usually. So having more units is actually being quite useful. So that's the first game with the Sisters, and I was quite happy with them after this game. Did I think about splitting the Terminators? No, it's just such a fringe situation where you would benefit from splitting them. It hardly ever enters my level of consciousness as the right thing to do. And maybe so the second game today that was on stream, maybe at the end there I could have split them because I didn't need all 5 just to kill one Sisters character. But then I'm like, I didn't have as much CP anymore at that time. The game was already over, so it didn't really matter in the end. I would think almost always, and the majority of the time, you're going to be better off keeping them together. Unless it's like the whole gimmick thing where you're running like 20 Alaris. I think it's always better to keep them together. I think you really have to plan the turn ahead that the next turn you're going to split to achieve X goals, and then it might be a good split. non-character jet bikes worth bringing? Well, we're going to answer that by the end of today, Sean. Okay, so that was the first game, a close loss by about 5 or 6 points. I was pretty bummed after that loss, I won't lie, but it was a good learning experience. Okay, the second game was against Francois. So this was the game, mission Vital Intelligence, which is the Vanguard strike with the 5 objectives across the middle. 4 objectives across the middle, 2 of which are extremely close together and can be held by literally 2 bikes next to each other like this. And then 1 objective in each end. And this was against Francois with his 3 infiltrating units, 2 aggressor units, G-Man, Chaplain, the Relic Scorpius, and he took out his Eradicators for a Grav dev unit, and his 5 Plasma Inceptors. Pretty hard list. This is the list that kicked my ass like a couple of weeks ago on this exact mission, when I had held back for the first turn instead of pushing forward, and he literally planted 5 banners, held 5 objectives, and I lost the game basically, and then he ended up tabling me. So that was a learning experience. So this game, I'm like, okay, Francois is going first again. I'm bumping straight up on the line, and I'm pushing up and taking at least 2 of these objectives back to not let him get that lead on me. So that's exactly what I did. I put my bikes right on the line, all 10 Terminators on the line. Oh, so in the first game, I did not deep strike anybody. This game, I have not deep struck anybody. And spoilers, in the last 5 games now, I have not deep struck anything. So just first game, I needed bodies on the table. I needed projection of force. I wanted to hold the middle without even going to the middle, as we discussed on the psychology episode. And then so this one as well, I needed my guys on the table first turn. And so everything on the line, push forward. I had a Rhino at the back here, and then 1 Rhino going to the right side, where he just had a couple of units sitting there just holding objectives. So that's what we did. I ended up taking out his infiltrators first turn, got my guys onto the objectives, and so stopped the landslide of victory points in the opposite direction. And then I ate a whole crap ton of aggressor fire. Grav came in, Inceptors came in, harassing the back here. They were there the whole game, harassing the back. Rhino girls kept the objective for me until Trajan was able to come back and save them. So point for Sisters and the Rhino. And this other Rhino that went up the side ended up capping this objective for most of the game with the 5 girls on it. And then that Rhino ended up moving into his deployment zone, move blocking, getting me recon points the rest of the game, and never did die because Francois never put any shooting into it. Couldn't afford to put shooting into this Rhino running around. So big kudos out to girls and Rhinos. Really did well in this game. My bikes almost all died to a man. The Aquilon Terminators died. The Alaris ended up making a big charge, an 8 or 9 inch charge into the back where his Chaplain and the Relic Scorpius were hanging out and hanging on this objective, and allowing me to wrongly, we discovered error today that we'd all played it wrong on Saturday, but getting my last scrambler. So anyway, that was the swinging game. All of us also played this mission wrong. This mission says specifically that you can cap the objective and then leave, and it's still yours. We all played that wrong, so that might have made a difference too. But it was a close game that ended up a close victory to me in that second game. And really the difference was the change in approach. So we were talking about aggression. The first time I played this mission against the same army, same mission, I was too non-aggressive because it's kind of scared of the firepower. And there is a crap ton of firepower. And then I lost it after first turn just because of all the points that was racking up. Whereas in this game, I was the complete opposite. I was balls out, ended up losing almost all of my army. Maybe a little bit too aggressive, but just managed to hold on, come back from behind and hold on for the win. So it was a opposite effect. So in this game, there was a cheeky 6-inch, I think 5 or 6-inch Tanglefoot on G-Man to stop him from getting into my Terminators. Tanglefoot, actually every game there was a cheeky 5 or 6-inch Tanglefoot, which saved a charge. So it was great. Tanglefoot was doing wonders on Saturday. Playing GK, you feel like you can lose or win a game by your turn 2 or 3. Do you feel the same with Custodes? So you know what? you often feel that way. Usually you feel more that way when you're losing. What I would say, though, because I felt really down about this game by sort of mid-turn 3, bottom of 3, is keep playing. And I always tell myself that, but not only was I down about this game, but I was also psyched out still from the last game. I'll admit that. So I played down and I was a bit whingy. Sorry, Francois. And then I ended up coming back and winning the game. So you just have to keep playing because the enemy loses punch and you still gain a lot of durability. So keep playing. Keep playing the mission. Keep playing, and you'll be surprised what you can pull out. Okay, so that was the second game. Let's pull up the third game here. So the third game, I got to play against Will. Will, who has been to like every single tournament that we run in Ottawa, and I've never played him, and so he brought Death Guard. So here's the deployment. This is the mission. Which mission was it? The 4 objectives. So 1 in each zone, and then 2 in no man's land. And you have to, if you hold, is it battle lines? Yeah, battle lines. And if you hold the middle ones, you get 2. The secondary is where you hold the 2 middle ones for 2 points each, and the back ones for the extra 3. And so his list was kind of scary. It wasn't the usual hard-hitting Death Guard list that people think is the best Death Guard list. Will admit it was not the most competitive. What he really wanted to try in this list was Mortarion and 6 Death Shroud guys, and see how crazy he can make Mortarion and infiltrate him. So that was the whole point of this list. So it was Mortarion and 6 of the Death Shroud guys infiltrated for 3 CP, and then coming in and kicking ass. That was the point of this list. Together with that, though, he had like 15 Plague Marines, he had 10 Blightlord Terminators, a Demon Prince, some dude with like a flat 3 damage weapon, and then like some zombies to hold objectives. So he set up so the strategy in this game, because he's very slow, was to fight over this bottom objective here in the picture, keep all his forces occupied here, try and survive long enough, and then take a unit to clear out the side objective on the opposite side, which just had 10 zombies, and then take his back objective. So that was the game plan. There was no way I was going to be able to kill his units. There was no way I was going to be able to outrun Mortarion. So that was the plan. So we just started on the line because it's not really got any shooting. And I parked everything in this kind of pool sort of terrain here on this objective and just waited him to come to me. Nothing much happened first turn. And then second turn, I tangle-footed his Blight Lord, so they didn't make it in. But second turn, Demon Prince came in, killed like a Terminator, didn't die in return. And then Morty came on right here in the bottom edge. I'm not drawing, it's just a picture. Sorry, I don't have the telestrator. So Morty came in, infiltrated in on the bottom edge, which was a mistake because I could have bumped the Rhino up to push Morty back a little bit. Anyway, so Morty did fail a 9-inch charge on his turn. He came in on the second turn, so he didn't do anything for a turn. But then he hit the Terminators. He did 57 hits, 39 wounds, all at strength 8, -2, 1 damage. Needless to say, he wiped out that unit. Like, that's just crazy numbers. The previous record of number of times I've been hit was 27 times by the Raven Guard captain. This doubled that, more than doubled that. 57 times he hit me. 50-something, 57 or 59 times. 39 wounds. It's just stupid. Like, no single model should do that many attacks. Like, that's just stupid. Anyway, so he wiped out that unit, no problem. And then all I did was keep his whole army in this side of the table while I sent the bikes around to the other side, and the shield captain went to his back lines to clear those 2 objectives. And just by doing that, I managed to survive long enough to win by 5 or 6 points. So Mortarion ended up coming over to this side, killing the bikes, and then coming down to the middle and killing the shield captain, but he couldn't get me in time before I pulled away with 5 or 6 point victory. But man, that was just crazy. Like the number of attacks. So in this game, it was about subtle aggression. I actually was maybe slightly too far forward to start with, but I wanted to put somebody on this objective just to make him come forward. That was his plan. He was going to come forward. And then I could have played the Rhino more aggressively to block Morty out from an easier charge for that for the next turn there. So I could have done that. But my sisters stayed at the back the whole game to stop any infiltrating there, and the other Rhino bumped up at the far edge to really help me get recon and things. So it was, so he was actually sisters and Rhinos again doing work and just trying to survive. So if people think Custodes is hard to kill, imagine our army, imagine Custodes, and we all had 5-up Feel No Pain. That's basically Death Guard, and it's crazy. So imagine my army with 5-up Feel No Pain. That would be... That's exactly what it's like. Me and Will were just sitting there slamming each other on the head with weapons, and nobody was dying. And then Morty came in and just killed everybody. So, and then there's just 2 Blightlord guys who hit me for 20 attacks. 2 guys. It was like crazy. So yeah, it was pretty crazy. Okay, so that was the third game. It was a uncomfortable close victory for Custodes. So I went 2-1 on Saturday, and so I was happy with that. I think I should have won or could have won if I played better the first game, but the other 2 games were okay. So it's the 3 games on Saturday. So in terms of thoughts after that, so my thinking was, okay, I'm getting better at judging aggression. The sisters and the Rhinos add a lot to my objective holding, to my backfield screening, a lot. And occasionally the sisters kill things too. And they're and the things that go after them they can survive those kind of things. Nobody's sending Centurions after sisters, right? So it was okay. So actually, they were really, really good to have those back units while the rest of my army shot forward. And the Rhinos were possibly my MVPs. Rhinos taking charges, tying things up, grabbing objectives, contesting objectives, getting me recon, really move blocking, really useful little things. T7, 3-up save, 10 wounds, like you -1 to hit with the smoke on the turn. People really don't want to devote too much firepower to Rhinos, and so they're actually super useful. Did you use Rhinos more for backfield or midfield production? So kind of both, depending on the matchup. So far in a couple of games, they've just stayed at the back, but usually they're heading into the midfield to push my screen forward as the girls stay at the back. And then on quite a number of occasions, they cap me recon points. And 4 Stormbolter shots can kill the odd thing too, but that is generally what they've been for, and they're really good at that because they move 12 inches. With a good advance, they can move up to 18 inches. They're really quite mobile, so I really like that. Adds a lot to the mobility of the list. And then the sisters move disembark 3, move 7, and then can advance 2. They can move far, those sisters. So when they need to, they can really motor. So they're also quite mobile because they move 7 inches. So the Rhinos and the girls were really good on Saturday, and the rest of my army was, as one would expect. The least impressed part of my army were the salvo bikes. Now, I didn't play a heavy vehicle meta, but even against elites, the Melta was just not reliable. I could hit, and, wounding was still 1s or 2s still missing as only 5 shots. It was just not impressive. The captain with the single salvo was similarly not impressive. And so I was not impressed by the salvo bikes. And man, there are a lot of points. The Terminators were Terminators. They did fine for what they had to do. There was just as is, and the Shield Captain was super good. And there's so many ways of using that guy on the bike. Very hard to kill. Survived so much stuff on Saturday. Really everything thrown at it. And at one point he got hit with a Sister's Melta. He got the auto 6 damage from the Miracle Dice, and I passed like 2 or 3 Feel No Pains to survive. Like that guy can eat it. At one point he tanked 14 Melta and multi-Melta shots. So Shield Captain on bike, so good. And with Unstoppable Destroyer, extra good. Okay, so that was those 3 games. So after this day, I decided to change the list a little bit. So this is where we get into 9.4.7. 9.4.6 and 0.7 are both in the Discord. 9.4.7 aims to change the list a little bit to have a little bit better shooting, try and keep the same mobility, and have a little bit more toughness. So, not more toughness, but try and stay as tough. And so what I did was, first of all, I changed the Salvo on the Shield Captain to a Hurricane Bolter. What I found the Captain was doing the most was going around the sides and the opponent's backfield, clearing out chaff units that were just standing on objectives all game to get me the 10, 15 primary points in the last couple of turns of the game. And by that time, the enemy has very little that can deal with him, and he's very good at doing that. So chaff units, T3, T4 chaff units, Hurricane Bolter, still very effective against those things. And then him on the charge 5 attacks, and then being able to leave combat and then go back in again with the Hurricane and the charge again. That was good. And I just found with the Salvo, it was not the stuff I needed to shoot at with the Salvo. Just killing one zombie with a Salvo. And even then, you're rolling 1, you re-roll into a 1, and there's a 1 to wound. It just was not good. So I changed the Salvo back to a Hurricane Biker. It doesn't cost me anything. And I was super happy with that today on these 2 games I played today. The other change was I dropped the Salvo bikes. I like their toughness. I like their mobility. And I like that they do stuff in combat, but I do not like the Salvo. So I think what I changed it for, so I took out the 5 Salvo bikers and dropped 1 Aquilon, because I find in general that 4 Aquilon still work quite well versus 5, whereas dropping Alaris to 4 doesn't work quite even half as well as keeping them at 5. So I dropped an Aquilon and the 5 bikes, and I replaced it with 5 Venatari and Bertha's back. So the Venatari give me a very similar move profile to the bikes. They have infantry keyword, which is key, not only for moving through ruins, but also because they can Tanglefoot, whereas the bikes cannot. That came up in a couple of situations. Also, the Venatari shooting is superb, especially with the CP for double shots, but even without. Even when that unit is down to 3 guys, 2 guys, double shooting it can still kill characters and things. So the Venatari are really good. And somebody just mathed out yesterday that, Unit 5 Venatari kills like a tank commander, which is what I'm going to need tomorrow night. So I really, really do like the Venatari. And so they're in as my mobile assault unit. 12-inch move, 18-inch range, super good. And being able to shoot pistol in combat too makes up for their slight loss of combat punchiness. They're still punchy. They're going to kill some things, but they're not going to kill heavy things. But being able to shoot their pistols in combat in the shooting phase is excellent. So the Venatari in, and then I got Bertha back in. Bertha is pretty fast. She usually anchors a back or midfield objective for me. She has the twin accelerator now, which I feel is much better gun because it's just got more shots. The storm cannon I used to like a lot, but I'm kind of off the bandwagon now because I always had the feeling that it was too few shots. And so the accelerator is excellent for killing Marines, elites, chaff units. It kills so many things. And then the Spiculus as well. So Bertha, and she's tough, hard to kill. She soaks up so much damage if people decide to shoot at her, which is usually a mistake. So Bertha's back in. And so now I got 2 units for the price of 1 as well. So that's an extra unit now that I can now use to space the board, hold the board. So with those 3 changes, so the Shield Captain's weapon, Venatari, and Bertha in for the salvo bikes, dropping 1 Aquilon, I went into today's game. Against Chris and Sisters of Battle, he changed his list a little bit too. He took out the minions, he took out the Rhino, he went up to 3 9-man Repentia squads, which are nasty, and split into, I think, 3 5-man Seraphim squads as well. Otherwise, pretty similar list. You can find our list that we played today on canhammer.ca, but my list is also on the Discord. So in the shadows, I'm going to answer your question at the end, okay? Because it's exactly what I've been thinking. Okay, so the first game we played was off stream, and that was, let me just pull up the thing. All right, it was this mission. This mission is Scorched Earth. Yeah, so this is the one where if you hold your opponent's objectives, you can raise them and they disappear. I was down here at the bottom of your screen, as you see, and Chris was at the top. So I deployed. The plan on this game was to put a Rhino here on the right and hold that objective, and maybe bump up to the top to the middle right objective. The Shield Captain and the Venatari are in the middle, so they can support right or left, and then the whole entire rest of my army to take out the 3 objectives on the left. So again, 6 objective game, hold 3, because this was a hold 3 and contest 1, and this was a mission where you just have to hold 1 in order to score your 5. So that would be easy to get 10 points per turn. So you're in no rush to rush forward and try and hold objectives because you're getting your primary. You're gonna max that out. So that was the plan. Now, so I ended up pulling my whole army over. Okay. So the first thing that happened, Chris went first. As you see here, this laser line, he melted the Rhino. It died. And it blew up and took 3 wounds off the Shield Captain, and I lost 2 girls. So that was the first turn. You can see here he backlined most of his army because he was scared of Bertha. So I already kind of had him on the back foot there, but he did manage to take out the Rhino and do a few wounds to the Captain. Needless to say, the Captain did not die the rest of the game. But so that was a bit of a damper to my efforts here on the right side. So what I ended up doing was, in the second turn, I moved up everything on this left side, bumped up everything full advance, got to the halfway line of the table, and then I put my Venatari and my Captain over to the left as well. And then when he committed to the left side later in the game, I swung my Captain and my Venatari back over to the right. And then I had this kind of pincer attack with the Venatari and the Captain on the right threatening the middle objective, and then all my rest of the army just clearing this top left corner of the table and pincering to the right. I survived. So at one point, 9 Repentia wiped off 4 Aquilon in 1 round. That was pretty nasty. I lost 2 Terminators to Multi-Meltas and then lost the rest of them to another Repentia unit. So at one point, it was not looking good, actually, because the Repentia were mopping me up. But then you can easily kill the Repentia with all sorts of things. And then eventually I was able to claw back, and I think I won by 12 to 15 points, just on the basis of primary recon. And at one point, he had this whole blob of Celestians and characters on this middle right objective fighting 5 Venatari and my Shield Captain, and I just came out on top of that. He just couldn't kill them. So, and that was it. So I ended up winning this game tightly by about 12 points or so, 10 or 12 points. And but man, the Repentia were nasty. And he had 1 unit, I think, or he might have infiltrated all 3 of the units here. And then the one thing I didn't do again was I left space in the corners for him to drop 5 little Seraphim girls with their fusion pistols and stuff, and they were taking out sisters at the back. So I did not learn, and I allowed that to happen again. Okay, so that was a good win. Close game, super tactical, good win. Then the next game after lunch, which was streamed, so you can watch it on our YouTube, was this one. So this was a rematch of our game on Saturday with the 6 objectives like that. And so we took we took Scramblers, Recon, and I took Killmore, or Grind Them Down, and he took basically the same, but he feels he should have taken the banners. Anyway, so we started this game again, and again, I'm on the bottom, and he's on the top. And so again, the objective for this game was to hold 3 objectives. So my bottom left, my bottom right, and middle left, and contest middle right, and eventually get to top left. That was the game plan, and I would eventually cede him the bottom right if necessary so that I could hold the 3 on the left. So almost kind of swing it to hammer and anvil. That was the plan. Now, Chris changed his tackle. So what I did was I put a Rhino over here on the bottom right, and I put a Rhino on the bottom left like before, and then I put the rest of my army here to the left of this middle rune in my deployment zone. And I put Bertha right on the line as a challenge. And what he did this time is he only put 2 Repentia units in Deep Strike. He put 1 big Repentia unit behind the rune to start on the board as a projection of force, and he kind of put a huge death ball behind that rune, and he put a multi-melty unit on the top right and a multi-melty unit top left. And he didn't quite deploy just well enough, so I went first turn. I picked off the multi-melty unit on the top left with Bertha, and so that was a big blow there, because no Meltas means no dead Bertha. Anyway, so what I did was I just bumped everything up here to the middle, onto the middle left objective, and I saw him, he pushed his Seraphim up to get this mid right objective. So then what I did is I just pushed my screen, and by bottom of 2, I'd screened off half the table diagonally, with the combination of Sisters spread out across the back, Vexilla, which wasn't doing much, holding the middle, and the 2 Rhinos bumping up, and then my whole army was here in the mid left of the table. Bertha in front. So then he charged Repentia and a Celestian squad into Bertha, and because of -1 damage, did 2 wounds. And he spent a lot of CP buffing them up. They did 2 wounds, and then they died. And then the Alaris and the Aquilano came in. The Aquilon came up the middle, shot off some more Repentia here, and then the Alaris Terminators ended up getting into his top left for his characters. The Venatari shot up the middle, the left edge of the board here, all the way, uncontested, onto his left objective with a charge, wiped out the Sisters back there, and then ended up taking out the characters. So we did this sweeping move around the left side of the board. Meanwhile, on the right side, with the Shield Captain there, the Rhino and the Sisters held this corner and actually pushed up onto the center mid objective as well. And just the combination of the Rhino, the Sisters, and the Shield Captain on bike held this whole quadrant, this right lower quadrant of the board for me, because there was too much for him to worry about coming up the left and middle of the board here. So that was it was quite a resounding victory. I 4-upped a whole bunch of Melta shots, and just couldn't. And with Bertha there picking off a unit a turn, and the Venatari picking off 2 to 3 units a turn with the combination of shooting and combat. The Terminators actually probably didn't do that much, but there's a little bit of shooting here and the projection of force and good screening did not allow any of his units into the backfield. So basically it was a resounding win. I think I won 70-something to 43 or something like that. So that was a much different game from Saturday's, but it was a good example of kind of make your game plan. How are you going to win this game? You're going to win this game by holding 3 and contesting 4. And so, again, nobody started off the table. I didn't deep strike anybody in the last 5 games. Nobody. That being on the table, projecting force, taking up space, screening out has been so much better than deep striking. And then I just used Trajan's ability on like a transhuman or something like that. So it's fine. 2 CP strat for free is still good. So it's been really about setting the game plan and then executing. The other thing I've been getting used to is how tough is the army? How tough actually is the army? So I'm used to 8th, where we're X amount of toughness. Now we're obviously a lot tougher if you have the CP, but how tough are we? And it's taken a while to get really dialed in with how much can my guys survive and how much will they not survive. And to be honest, they will survive most things. They don't survive Morty doing 57 attacks. They don't survive fully buffed up Repentia, where you don't have the CP to protect them. But they will survive almost everything else and still have enough power to hit back. So you can trust your toughness, especially in the beginning of the game when you have the CP. Trust your toughness, use your CP, and take that board. I think deep striking is a option, but as I've always said, it depends. It's not, you should not automatically be putting things in deep strike. You need to really think about what you're trying to do with your units. What is your game plan to win this game? Don't forget, read the mission. You often, in only 3 of them, you have to hold 2 objectives to get 5, 3 objectives to get 10. Otherwise, you're really just looking to hold 2 objectives to get 10 on your primary, and you'll get 40, 45 probably over the course of a game. You don't need to overextend to get onto 3rd or 4th objectives sometimes, depending on the opponent you're playing, or the board, or the terrain. So you don't need to go 2 balls out. And reserve your power. I think in the first game this morning I played against Chris, I didn't use a single CP till like the bottom of 3 because there wasn't any damage coming in and I wasn't engaging anything. So I just built up this huge, massive pool of CP that I just spammed and did work. I did sniping, I did all this stuff. So I think that is the way to play. Gauge how aggressive you need to be based on what you need to do in your game plan, and then go from there. And if you don't need to deep strike, don't deep strike. MVPs today for these 2 games, Venatari, they're just perfect for killing sisters. So we'll see how they do tomorrow night. But Venatari, their mobility, the combat, and the shooting, just the total package today. Sisters were MVPs today, screening the backfield. And then bolters on sisters, hard to kill. So sisters were MVPs. Rhinos, I think I lost both rhinos in the first game, like by turn 2, but in the second game they were still alive at the end, getting me recon, tying things up. Rhinos, good. I used a couple of sister stratagems in the second game because I had CP and it was going well. I used the turn the boulders into assault 3, that was okay. And then I also used the stratagem to make the opponent -1 to hit in combat against me when they're trying to clear me off the objective. That was really useful. So that's a neat little stratagem to keep in mind. Almost kind of makes you want to run like a sister unit up near your Custodes to make your opponent -1 to hit in combat. Because it's not -1 to hit against the sisters unit, it's just -1 to hit. That could be quite nifty. But you would have to have a sister unit kind of in the mix, and it would be easy to pick off in there. So maybe not that great, but it's an interesting thought. One other thoughts that I had, it would be interesting because Scrambler seems like it's really easy. The one in your zone, your girls will get that on the first turn. The one in the mid zone, as you move up, a Terminator unit can do it instead of shooting a few pot shots with your bolters. Just get your Terminators to do the midfield Scrambler. And then the deployment zone Scrambler, though, that's the tricky one. If you're doing fine at the end of the game, your Terminators will be there and they'll be able to do, or Trajan will be able to do you your last Scrambler. But if you don't get that third Scrambler, you've just lost 10 points. It'd be interesting to try actually spending a CP and infiltrating one sister's unit and then just sticking it on in turn 3. They come in, Scrambler's done. That would be interesting. But I kind of don't want to spend that CP, but that would be interesting. So the list worked perfect today. The Venatari Bertha was money with 8 shots, way better than the Storm Cannon was today. And that tanking all those Repentia, just being a boss in that second game was amazing. Really felt good to have her back in the list. Didn't miss the bikes at all, and the added mobility and more units was there with the Venatari and the Rhinos and things. So I like the current list as it stands right now. Oh, yeah, and the Hurricane Bolter on the Shield Captain came in handy both games, just clearing sisters off of objectives was like, yeah, way better than the odd salvo missile. In the Shadows asked me earlier, would a second squad of Venatari be better mobility-wise than Bertha? Well, obviously, a squad of Venatari is more mobile than Bertha. But Bertha fills a role. First of all, she's very tough. I mean, most armies should probably not bother shooting at her. But if they do, it's stuff that's not shooting your army, and she'll probably tank it. So there's that. She's the Distraction Carnifex. But this Distraction Carnifex does move 8 inches and can easily sit on a back or midfield objective for you as you move forward. And those accelerators will kill things. People remember the heyday of the accelerators on the Caladius tanks. Those still kill Marines and elite infantry very well and will clear chaff easy. I mean, 8 shots into a Guardsman unit, that's the Guardsman unit, 8 dead. And so that's what you need. So I think she fills a role there. Second unit of Venatari is very intriguing. I thought about it. I have a second unit of Venatari unbuilt, but it's very interesting. But Venatari, to stay alive against concerted attack, does take CP. You're almost always going to transhuman, and so it does take up resources, and you'll only be able to do that with 1 unit. You can only double shoot 1 unit, and you have to give up 300 points of something else. I quite like the double Terminator, one of each type with the mobile unit and Bertha. So I'm kind of sticking with that for the minute. Plus, if I want to build my second Venatari unit, I have to get no more pistols from somewhere else. But anyway, and then the big bugbear right now is we don't know where the Forge World book is. Who knows when it's going to come out? Who knows if it's going to come and what's going to be in it? So I kind of don't want to overinvest in more Forge World right now. I'll play with what I got. George, yes, I run the double accelerator. So that answers the double Venatari question. The other one is, do you miss 1 to 2 units in Deep Strike? No, I do not miss Deep Striking at all. The board presence of having everything on the board is on the line is being so huge. The psychologic projection of force is huge. You basically denying the middle when you put your whole freaking Custodes armies on the line. You're denying the middle. Okay, people go in there at their peril. Not only will they die, they give you free movement from charging. So I think you'd have to think long and hard about why you want to deep strike something right now if you want to deep strike something. Like, why are you doing it, right? Specifically, why are you deep striking this unit? So I think you got to think about that. It's not a brainless decision that you should be making. Okay, so tomorrow night I'll be playing Francois' guard list, which is, from what he tells me, basically Brandon Grant's current guard list. It is a bunch of guardsmen, a big Bulgrin unit, 3 tank commanders, a fully payloaded Manticore, and then a bunch of Scions with Toroxes. So that should be an interesting challenge. A lot of board presence there, but a lot of easy to kill units. Not unlike the Sisters matchup there. Some serious firepower, triple Demolisher cannons, and the Manticore does some serious firepower, but Guard always suffer from -1 to hit, so I have to be very careful about my Vexilla in tomorrow's game. Also, vehicle killing. How do I kill vehicles? Well, Toroxes are not hard to kill, and that's already 9 points, or 6 points on vehicles right there. And then I can, if somebody mapped it out, I can kill a tank commander with 5 Venatari without using big Blood Game veterans. So that's reassuring. And of course, I still have Terminators. So I don't think it'll be that hard to cap 4 or 5 vehicles and max out the big game. So that shouldn't be too bad. And then Bulgrin unit, I used to be scared of Bulgrins. I used to be scared of Bulgrins because they can kill me back. My -2 AP puts me on my invuln 2 damage. A lot of attacks. But now, if I hit them with my Terminators, I'm not scared. 0 AP, thank you very much. So not as scared as the Bulgrin unit, and in fact, if I can tie them up in combat, I might actually then not be shot by Demolishers and stuff like that. So unless he wants to risk losing Bulgren. So there we go. So that is the and also I could try and snipe out the Psyker who's giving them +1 save. So that's my game plan tomorrow night against Guard. It will be right here on the channel starting at 9 o'clock, and so that should be a good game. So do tune in. All right, more questions. Thanks for the deep strike point. This could be my fault with 800 points of reserve. Yeah. You're playing with half an army for a turn and a half. It's you have to really think about why you're doing that. What are your thoughts on Custodes transports as an alternative to deep striking? So the Land Raider is good. Cronus is probably okay. The problem is it's a lot of points. And we kind of don't need it that much. So there are lists out there. Chris is running Land Raiders, and that's all fine. And actually, the previous iteration of my list had a Land Raider instead of the bikes, and it just had more Terminators. So 2 Terminator units and a Land Raider, and then the sister stuff. I just didn't like it, and I think this is a better balance and more mobile. And the transports do their job. They get you there and they discharge your contents, and they may sit on an objective, but then they don't do that much else. I don't want stuff doing that. So I don't know. I haven't tried. I've tried one game with the Land Raider and haven't tried the Cronus. I don't own a Cronus. I'm not going to buy a Cronus, especially not now before the Forge World book out. So if people are playing with that, then let us know how it's going. I know the Land Raider does pretty well. But I'm just not into that right now. And as I say, I think if moving and advancing your guys up is actually fairly good. Okay, Terminators for mobility and Vexilla Homer. Yeah, so obviously if you're deep striking, then you're going to Homer. But then you have to get your Vexilla there, which is not normally a big problem getting the Vexilla there, but sometimes it can be. And then you're fucked by infiltrators. You're messed up by all the infiltrators. So that's still fine. I just really like the projection of force that your Terminators give out when they're on the table. So I always think about deep striking, the Aquilon or the Alaris, depending on the situation. That thought always goes through my mind at the beginning of every game. It should. But these last 5 games, I've just started them on the table because I felt like I needed the board presence right off the bat. Sometimes it feels like forever waiting to the bottom of your second movement phase to get them in. So, yeah, for sure. I mean, if you're doing fine and the guys come down, you didn't really need them, well, then you were probably doing fine anyway. But, yeah. Land Raider has great anti-vehicle. Yes. So suddenly accidentally bought a second Telemon. Have you made a huge mistake? I don't think so. It's a great model, and now you have 2 Telemons. I don't know if there's a lot of utility in running 2 Telemons, because you can't protect them both. Now, they're hard to kill anyway, even without protection, but, there's diminishing returns for points investment, and I think running 2 Telemons is probably starting to go down the slope of diminishing returns for points investment. It's probably not bad. I think 3 Telemons is probably too many. 2 is you're on the slope. That's kind of my thinking on the Telemon, on 2 Telemon. So that's fine. People have been running triple Telemons with punchy fists and stuff and having a lot of fun and, winning games. That's fine. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying, double Telemon is probably starting to run down the slope of diminishing returns for points investment. Dicehammer TV, welcome. He has 5 Telemons. There you go. So if you're worried about your mistake, don't worry. Somebody has made it 5 times. In the shadows, in my test games, the Land Raider has always been dead weight. When your opponent wants them dead, they are in 1 round. Sure. I mean, anything has the chance of being dead weight. That's not a debate for sure. Okay, I'm going to go to the Discord, but if you have questions, keep posting them up in the chat. All right. Sister's question. Sisters of Silence, pros and cons. Okay, well, I think we covered a lot of that. The pros are they're cheap bodies that take up space. And because you're only taking 5, you don't need to worry about coherency because you can string them out. The pro is that nobody wants to shoot at them because that seems like not a great use of firepower. They may be wrong, but it is what it is. They take up space. They screen. I used their -1 on Psychic one time, which helped stop Mortarion cast one spell. But the Psychic, anything they do Psychic-wise is a bonus, I feel. Okay? That's not why I'm taking them. And if they happen to do something Psychic-wise, then cool. But yeah. So I think there's lots of pros to Sisters. I think the biggest con with Sisters is that they are freaking elites. Okay, so to run Sisters and then you still want to run your Vexilla and at least a Terminator unit, you're at least running a battalion or a Vanguard like I am, which takes a hit on your CP. Now, turns out 8 CP is plenty with Trajan, so that's fine. But man, if they were troops, it would be over. We could easily do this list as a patrol and start off with 11 CP, which would be great. And they would be OPSEC. So that's one thing that catches you out. Remember, they're not OPSEC, and you can be easily contested or stolen by enemy OPSEC. So those are the cons. The only con of the Sisters is that they are elites, and I hope that gets fixed, but it won't probably. So we'll be stuck with them as elites, and that's a pain. So some people think you can just run No Maiden Rhinos without the Sisters units. I feel like this is not intended, even though it may be technically raw. I feel like it's not intended that you should be able to take them without running Sisters units. Nor do I think that you should. I think the more Rhinos you run, the more points you're giving away for the vehicle killing secondary, and I think a couple is actually a nice balance. So that's the pros and cons of Sisters. Okay. Sisters question, last chance. How much do you think Custodes are going to be impacted by the upcoming Marines and weapons changes? Well, obviously, if everything goes flat damage, it's going to be bad for us. But there's a lot out there that's already flat damage. I don't think it's going to make a huge difference, especially if Marines lose rules, which is the rumor. The rumor that we have from decent sources is that despite getting all these weapon upgrades, they are losing army-wide rules, and they will be gaining some points. So that's fine. I think it'll all balance out. I think if everyone starts to lose variable damage for flat damage, we will be the beneficiaries of that. If our fucking D3 went all to flat 2, it's like speechless with how good that would be. I think I would have to stream a reaction episode where I just kind of sit here and stare at the screen. That would be great. Even just Trajan getting flat 3 would be nice. Come on. So yeah, if this bodes as a pattern for everything else, getting 2 instead of D3 or whatever, then that bodes well for us. Are we going to see Pyrothite Spears getting the new Melta changes? It's unlikely since they're not Melta. But who knows? The Forge World book might change that already. We don't know. But we don't have any of the same weapons that all the Marines and stuff have. So we'll see how that pans out. Who's the Boogeyman faction that we should worry the most about? I think Death Guard. I think Death Guard are hardcore. I think you have to try and do what I do, which is limit them to one area of the field and just try and survive and cap points. You can't kill them. They'll struggle to kill you quick enough, but you can't kill them. And so you kind of use your mobility and try and play around it as best you can. Play the mission, man. Play the mission. I've not played any Eldar yet. Eldar's always a boogeyman for us, so we'll see. I think a couple of knights and a bunch of armigers is still very strong. Although you might win on the mission, you're going to lose a lot of your army. So there's still a lot of armies out there that can do good work. Jeremy's Dark Angels list was super strong on Saturday. He won the RTT, so that was very strong. So there's a lot of strong armies out there right now. There's no real meta. Everyone's just playing against people that they play against and tuning up. So it's getting pretty challenging. I After playing so many games now, play how necessary do you think Trajan and or CP regen? I think you just bring Trajan, man. I don't think you need any other regen. If you don't bring Trajan, then you should, if you're starting with 12 CP and you don't bring Trajan, I think you'll be fine. If you're playing with 10 CP or less and not bringing Trajan, you would seriously consider some form of CP regen, and that could be whatever form you want. That's where like 9-10 is kind of the threshold, I think. So yeah, I think that's what you got to do. What's the biggest thing do you think we struggle with the most? So we're still an elite army, and that's why this 4.4 series list have come around using the sisters, because we're elite, we struggle with taking space and holding things, and without making our units do nothing. And we never want our units doing nothing because they cost so many points. So this that's why I feel like this list right now is a really good way of playing if you want to be a take all comers, all round, can hold, can kill, can survive sort of list. I think it's very strong, and so I welcome people to try it. You can find it on the Discord and the Custodes channel. It's pinned up there. Try it out. What do you think is the best way to deploy our Terminators? Well, we talked about this extensively. What are your go-to secondaries? Okay, so I was big up on While We Stand, and maybe with Bertha in the list is another big up again. I think While We Stand is only good depending on how you use your characters. If you don't use them aggressively, then While We Stand is 10 to 15 auto points, so it's great with Bertha in the list. If you use your characters aggressively, like sometimes I do, then you're just throwing away points, kind of handicapping yourself. I think Kill More is great. Our army has always been, one of their win conditions was to not die and to kill more things. And so Kill More still remains a good secondary for us, which is Grind Them Down. And tomorrow night, I'm definitely picking Grind Them Down because there's 3 points too. So it's decent. Scramblers, I think people should think about how they could do Scramblers. Terminators on the table is a great way of getting Scramblers, so you just move them up in the first turn. They can scramble in the midfield one, and then in the second turn you do your own deployment zone one. So I think Scramblers is good, easy 10 points most of the time. The Assassinate, again, all the other ones are kind of conditional, so Assassinate for certain armies with aggressive characters. Lots of vehicles, and you take big game. Titan Slayer only if you're facing 2 to 3 knights. Don't take it if you're only facing a single knight, as I learned against Ian at Phil's house last week. And then all the other ones, banners is probably good. So if you got 2 sisters units doing banners, then they can raise a banner and then just keep capping it. And then one of your Terminator units, as they move up the field, can raise a banner one turn instead of shooting a few bolters. And then now you have 3 banners going. You're going to get 12 points from that. So, it's very hard for opponents just to come in and cap the objective off you because you're all OPSEC. So I think banners is actually pretty good if you want to take like an action secondary instead of deploy scramblers, if you don't think you're going to get into your opponent's deployment zone. And recon. Recon is great. It's very easy to get 2 points a turn for recon, and then so that's already 10 right there. And the odd near the end of the game, when you're in every quarter, turn 3, turn 4, turn 5, you're getting 3 points each. Can easily get 12 to 15 off recon. So recon is still not recon. Engage all fronts. So that's still a great secondary. So there's plenty of secondaries there for people to use. I don't like hardly any of the mission ones. I think they're all traps for us. But you can consider it on a mission per mission basis. But those are the basic ones that you can take up. Yeah, so you have to be 6 inches away. So you have to do it in the second turn. So you can do your zone, and then the next turn do your zone. So like in a couple of the games now, my Terminators just shot a few shots into a unit and did really nothing. And really what they should have done is done scramblers. The other thing is the Venatari can push forward very easily and get your midfield scramblers done. Hide behind a building, midfield scramble on the first turn. So Venatari are great because they're infantry too. Bikes could not do that. So Venatari can get that done. And Venatari are probably your way of getting the deployment enemy zone scrambler as well. So if you're running Venatari, I think scramblers is a really good option there. And yeah, so I think that's a great question about the secondaries, and that's kind of what I'm running with these days. Okay, that is all the questions on the Discord. Any more questions in the chats? So as I mentioned, tomorrow night we will be joined by Francois again. And sorry guys, it's always Francois or Phil, and that's because they're my two pre-approved, COVID-approved play partners right now. We're not at the stage yet where I can start inviting random people into my home, so you'll just have to put up with the same people for now, but Francois does have like 10 or 12 armies. So he's bringing Guard tomorrow night. He's super excited to play that, and so I'm super excited to play against it. And then what we'll probably do is I'll start throwing in some of my non-Custodes armies too, so we can mix it up a little bit. But for now, that's kind of what we're stuck with. What do you think of GK Custodes soup? Like Yoshi's been running? I think if you run Grey Knights and Custodes, you'll beat a bunch of people. But I don't think it's the optimal way to run either army. I also am not about soup. The whole channel is about pure Custodes, and now we have the opportunity to do that very effectively. We don't need soup to be effective, then that's what I'll stick with. But I just think running Grey Knights with Custodes together is not the optimal way to run either book. So, yeah. There's no real synergy there. It's just that Grey Knights are strong and Custodes are strong, so you're just putting two things together that are strong. Palace tanks. Yeah, so that's a good idea. The Palace tanks do cost more than Rhinos, like 30 points more. So you got to find 60 extra points. But and they are, depending on what's shooting at them, easier to kill than Rhinos. They move faster, and they have better shooting. So, you're paying for that extra 30 points. So, and also you can't put your sisters in Palace tanks, which is a thing. So I think, yeah. So I think that's what you trade off when you're looking at Palace tanks versus Rhinos. And if you don't want to run sisters at all, then I think running a pure Custodes list with a couple of Palace tanks has some play in it, for sure. For the same reasons that I've been running Rhinos. But I think for less points, you can get very similar performance from the Rhinos. So, yeah. And I tell you, popping smoke on a Rhino is key. I mean, -1 to hit, so good. Rhinos have survived melt shots with the -1 to hit, like, so good. All right, 3 Guardians with shields versus Sisters Rhinos as objective campers. Seems you get a lot of utility with the Rhino. Yes. So the problem with 3 Guardians with shields is it's still more points than a Rhino and 5 girls. It's more points than that. Yeah, those 3 dudes are hard to kill. But depends what shoots at them. And people will be more likely to shoot those 3 dudes than some 5 girls that are out of line of sight at the back. And a Rhino. People hate shooting at Rhinos. And what you need to kill a Rhino is a decent amount of firepower that you would much rather be putting into my Custodes that are bearing down on you. So the Rhinos end up doing a lot. And it's 2 units for the same price as just 3 dudes who are going to do literally nothing for your whole game. And 5 girls takes up more space than 3 dudes. They can screen better than 3 dudes. And they have some fringe benefits, but that's not really why you're taking them. But they screen better. They take up more space. Them and the Rhino together block out a huge circle of deep strike area. Much bigger than 3 dudes. And then they are more mobile than 3 dudes. You can always pop them back into the Rhino and shoot off. And and arguably actually have more shooting than the 3 dudes too. Than those stupid pistols on the swords. You've got 5 bolters that can turn into assault 3, and you got a storm bolter. So there's more shooting than 3 dudes. They're not as good in combat, obviously, but if you're at a point where people are fighting your 3 dudes on your backfield objective, you're probably either didn't play it well or you're losing. In which case, sisters or 3 dudes, probably not a huge difference. The biggest difference is the 3 dudes are OPSEC and the girls are not, and the Rhino is not. But that you can play around that. So I think actually 5 girls and a Rhino, maybe even better than 3 Guardians just sitting at the back. So, it's something that people should try. Yeah. And I'm first to admit I was not a sisters convert at first, but then as I started to play more, I was just like, okay, I need things to fill this role. I need screening, deep strike screening, and I need some more mobility, and I need just units to be places. And so that was the only option we had if you're playing pure, right? Obviously, if you want to play Scions and stuff, they're filling a good goal. You could even play guard, right? But I wanted to stay pure. That's the whole point. And so the inevitable path, as you experimented in 9th, was it lead you to cheaper units that you can use to hold stuff. So inevitably, we ended up here. But yeah. So agreed, Rhinos and Sisters are better than Guardians for what they do. If that's what you're using your Guardians to do, there's a lot of plus sides to girls and Rhinos over the 3 Guardians. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying 3 Guardians is bad, but it is what it is. Apparently, Brian Pullen just got dominated by Harlequins. So Harlequins is a tough matchup, man. We don't have any Harlequin players around here, and as I said, I can't invite people in right now. I got Harlequins, but nobody I know can bring Custodes to play me. But Harlequins is a tough matchup, man. Super mobile, hard to kill, a lot of fusion, really tough matchup. Everywhere on the board, lots of tricks. So that's a tough matchup. I'm not surprised that Brian got beat. Now, no offense, Brian, though. He doesn't exclusively play Custodes. So some of y'all out there might have more experience playing Custodes in 9th than Brian does. Just saying. I love Brian. But, he's got a thing he has to do with the channel. He's got to play all these armies. And although he might love Custodes the most, he probably doesn't get to play them as often as he'd like. So then you put them up against a hard matchup, and then little bits here and there, and then, you go down. I think, I've been 4 out of 5 in the last 5 games winning, and I think a lot of that is just familiarity with my army. I've been playing this army for almost 3 years. I know what everything does. I know what things can take and how much damage things can do, and then you add on top of that these extra rules, and it's just about adjusting a little bit as opposed to relearning. So it does pay dividends to keep playing the same army, and importantly, to keep playing the same lists or same styles of lists. So Telemon down turn 1, Trajan down turn 2. Oh yeah, there you go. Custodes not been doing well on Tabletop Tactics recently. Bridger got wasted by Space Wolves. Brian's getting wasted by Harlequins. Yeah, so okay, guys. So thanks for joining, and we'll hope to see you tomorrow night on the stream against Guard. So we'll pop over to Tabletop Titans now raid, and we'll see you over there. So thanks.